Hi class. Okay, so this is video 2 for the finishing up of chapter 12. So you should only have one question left on your study guide, and that's the very last question about describing at least 2 possible safety or ethical issues involved with DNA technology, or something that we talked about in this whole unit. So I have about 9 more slides. The final slide is going to be a summary slide that are all the choices that you could choose, because this is going to be one of the paragraph questions on the exam. So let's get to it. So our first slide here talks about safety and ethical issues. So a lot of people are scared of DNA technology. As soon as scientists started doing it, they were worried about the creation of hazardous new pathogens. As we saw with the gene therapy, you can transfer genes that could end up being cancerous. So I'm going to switch slides here. There are strict laboratory safety procedures so that infectious microbes can't escape. They're also very stringent when they're starting to grow a new genetically modified plant. The fields are very well restricted also. So we talked a little already about the controversy over genetically modified foods. There have been several campaigns to label genetically modified foods, and I believe Connecticut was the first state to say that genetically modified foods had to be labeled. So most of the things you will see in the grocery store now will actually say if they're genetically modified or not. So they tried to pass it here in Colorado. It did fail in Colorado, but because other states have passed it, you will find that most of the food in the grocery store is labeled whether it's genetically modified or not. So one of the arguments against is that if you label something that's genetically modified, it implies that there's something dangerous about it. So personally, I would rather have my food labeled this product was made using chemical pesticides. But here we go. If we continue talking about this, so people that were concerned had concerns that the crops carrying genes from other species might harm the environment. We talked about the story with the monarch butterflies, which ended up not being true. People were worried that genetically modified foods could be hazardous to human health. I have another slide in this PowerPoint that talks about how there's been over 18 years of study and over 1,700 studies, and nothing has been found to be dangerous or hazardous at all yet. You can put the word yet in there, but nothing as of yet has been found that is harmful about genetically modified foods. This last one, humans with food allergies might not be aware of possible allergens in their food. No one is going to do that. No one is going to take the peanut protein that people are allergic to and put it in a different food. They know that that would be crazy. So there is such a thing as a biosafety protocol, and 130 countries have agreed on it. There's several U.S. regulatory agencies that evaluate biotech projects. These include the Department of Agriculture, the FDA, the EPA, and the NIH. And like I said before in a different slide, there's been 18 plus years of feeding genetically modified foods to livestock, and then following several generations through that livestock to see if anything happens. Nothing has been found yet. This is an excellent link to Forbes.com, and it's a great review article that links to every single study they have done. So if you're really into following the sources, this is going to be a great link for you. You can see it in the PowerPoint that's going to be over in chapter 12. So there's some other ethical questions raised by DNA technology. Should we try to perfect our children? For instance, some vertically challenged people could be given human growth hormone as children to stimulate them to grow taller. I actually had a student in my class, a male student, who said he got this as a child and he was very thankful. But because he would have normally been about 5'4", and this way he was 5'6". So he was thankful that he got it, but should we consider some things to be deficiencies, like being vertically challenged? I kind of spoke in front of this slide. Should we eliminate genetic defects in our children? Should we interfere with evolution this way? There are also privacy issues. Like every time you are picked up, say, by the police, should we take a DNA sample from every criminal, whether it's murder, whether it's shoplifting as a teenager? Should we have everybody's DNA sample in a database? Could future employers or health insurers get a hold of that information and say, hey, I've looked at your DNA here and it looks like you might be a candidate for Alzheimer's, so forget it, we're not going to hire you. So that's one of the issues that we're talking about in that last question on the study guide too. Again, I have a summary slide coming up. So this is just a segue slide into our next unit, which is going to be evolution. So because we have sequenced so many organisms now, it's confirmed evolutionary connections between yeast cells, human cells, plant cells. And then if you compare all of those DNA sequences, it strongly supports the theory that there's those three fundamental domains of life: bacteria, archaea, and eukaryotes. So my very last slide here is going to be the summary slide. This is what you get to choose from on the exam. So what I want you to know is I will ask you to talk about one of the safety or ethical issues involved with DNA technology. So what you want to do, this is just very, very brief. You're going to need more info than this. So you'll either have to go back to your notes or back through the Chapter 12 PowerPoint if you didn't get those notes, but go all the way back to, let's see, 11 and 12 we talked about. Chapters 11 and 12 we talked about the controversies. So examples are embryonic stem cells. Look at the two breakthroughs we talked about. Are we killing babies, or have the breakthroughs gotten past that? Can you write a paragraph on that looking at the data that I gave you? Genetically modified organisms. Should they be labeled? Are they dangerous? What does the data say? And then you can talk about DNA samples taken anytime someone gets pulled over by the police. We've already seen in our country that there's discrimination occurring between whites and blacks, Hispanics. Would this taking of a DNA sample also just add to this trouble? Should employers or health insurers have access to your DNA sequence? Is this an invasion of privacy? This is where I really wish we were in class so we could kind of discuss it more, but I want you to look at the data I've given you and then be able to discuss this. And then CRISPR. Again, I'll put up several videos about CRISPR. Discuss what some of the possible issues are there. What about the Chinese scientist that tried to use CRISPR to make 2 human babies? What about the woman who is trying to cure sickle cell anemia? What are some possible issues with this? So this pretty much concludes chapter 12, and this should be about an 11-minute video, so I think that that's good. Okay, bye-bye.